Hello, my name is Melanie Finch and I'm from the School of Earth, Atmosphere and Environment. To celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we are talking to three of our stellar PhD students to find out more about them and what they do. So now we have Pia Freisen and she's going to tell us about her PhD. And so what is your PhD about?
So very broadly speaking, I'm looking at climate models and how well they do in simulating the tropical to extratropical circulation. And generally speaking, like atmospheric models, they simulate our circulation, and unfortunately they're not perfect. There's a lot of errors because there's just so many processes going into the calculations. And so what the model experiments that I work with try to do is we fix some of these errors in a certain region in the southern hemisphere and then look at what the impact of fixing these errors are on others. And in the end we're trying to learn more about processes going on in the circulation.
Wow, it sounds like it's really important work for understanding climate change and that sort of thing, right? Yeah, cool. So what has been the highlight of your PhD so far?
For me, it's actually the climate community here in Australia. The Monash is part of this Centre of Excellence for Climate Extremes. That's a collaboration with 4 other universities in Australia, and that is just a really tightly knit community here in Australia. We have, for example, bi-weekly meetings of people presenting if they work on similar topics at the different universities, or we have an annual workshop where people get together. And especially as Australia is so remote and far away from anywhere else, it's really good to be, as a PhD student, to be part of this community here. And then another highlight I want to mention is that my main supervisor, Julie Arblester, was actually promoted to professor last year, and she's the first female professor at our school, which is a great achievement for her, but also a long overdue achievement for our school and in general women in higher positions at Monash, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So the school has had female professors before, women professors before, but not for a really long time. Yeah. And I agree, it was an amazing moment, wasn't it, when she was promoted? It was, she's such an awesome role model for all of us. So I guess you know then quite a bit about what it takes to be a good mentor, because Julie would be excellent at that. Do you have thoughts about that? What makes a good mentor?
For me, I think it should be a good mixture of being like a direct and accompanying, providing direct and accompanying guidance for your PhD project, or any, student in any kind of project. And also what I think is really important, if the supervisor, especially if they're in a higher position, try to make the work relationship as leveled as possible. So there's not a lot of hierarchy, and that I think helps students to arrive in their role as a scientist and feel more confident in what they do. And in general, I think it's just good if a mentor or supervisor is accessible and encouraging and communicative. So even if something maybe doesn't go according to their vision, they're open and know how to communicate it to the student.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such great advice. Sometimes, people say that you should have a bit of distance from your students, but I definitely see what you're saying, that that sort of friendly atmosphere would help everyone feel more comfortable, and that's really cool. So I was wondering what change you want to see in the world in relation to women and girls in science.
I think for me, ideally, we should implement an equal representation of men and women in science, or basically any other field. I think, I know there's a lot of criticism about female quotas and that people that are not as qualified would get a position, but I think if these quotas or programs that help women achieve higher positions, for example in academia, I think it's needed now, so we don't keep having the same like discussion about it, and we actually at some point arrive at this new standard and see more women in higher positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it feels like change is really slow, doesn't it? Yeah. And I think there are studies that show that once you have an equal number of men and women in workplaces, it just kind of stays that way. So you only have to do it once, and it kind of maintains itself. Yeah. So that's really good. Okay, so can you think of a way? I mean, this is the answer that we're all trying to get to, but a way that we can actually achieve that. So how can we get more women into science, into earth and atmospheric science?
I think ideally we would have more female scientists to do more public outreach, for example, because like right now during the pandemic, you see all these like virologists and experts kind of being shoved in the spotlight, and like that's really to me it's like really interesting to hear from these experts, and ideally, if at some point we're back to, I guess, discussing the climate crisis as the scientific thing in the public, ideally we would have an equal representation of men and women as experts, be that on TV or podcast or any other kind of medium. And I know that it seems like a lot to ask, like ideally women and men would get time allocated to like invest their working hours into doing public outreach. But I think especially if we have more, for example, women scientists as advisors or so, that it helps to like normalize women in leading scientific roles, and that would be a great example for like little girls, for example, looking up to them.
Yeah, absolutely, and little boys, everybody. The whole. I think the public perception of women in science would be greatly improved by that sort of approach. Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Thank you for having me.